A warm welcome to Diski Talk with Luyolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I do ask that you please subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, on today's episode, I discuss all things Afcon 2023 qualifiers as Morocco took on South Africa in Rabat. So, the match did end 2-1 in favor of Morocco within the opening encounter of the group stages. When you do have a look then at this episode, this is a post-match analysis of that encounter. The red team will represent Morocco and then the blue team will represent Bafana Bafana. So when you have a look at Morocco then, coming up into this encounter, they did start with somewhat of a 4-1-3-2. At times it did look somewhat of a 4-4-2 from a standard formation. However, when they did look then to impose themselves within the half of Bafana Bafana, it became very, very offensive with regards to their offensive scheme and how then they were looking to use the fullbacks to penetrate, especially on the right-hand side. However, let's have a look at the personnel that started. In goals, they did start with Bono. At left back, they did start with Messina. As the left-sided centre-back, they started with Romain Saiss. They started with Agourd as the right-sided centre-back. And then as the right-back, they did start with Hakimi. Moving then within the heart of midfield, they did start with Rabat, who then was key then in sitting in front of his defence as he is the defensive midfielder. Also very key then in ensuring that he could dominate proceedings from a central perspective within the deep pocket of space. And then when you do have a look at it then, off the right-hand side, they did start with Barkok. They then had Amala, and then they had Sher, who started off the left-hand side, however, would tend to drift in a lot of the times, which then would vacate the left-wide channel for Messina whenever then the opportunity to overlap would present itself. And then up front, they did then start with Tisu Dali, and then they started with Nassir. So when you do have a look then at Morocco, so they did dominate proceedings from a ball possession perspective, and overall they were the more dominant side with regard to the amount of chances they created, as they did have then 63% ball possession. So when you do have a look at their offensive scheme, what Morocco were trying to do coming up into this encounter then, they were trying then to overload the right-hand side as they did identify Lila K as the weakness. So with regards to that then, Hakimi then was always going to be key with regards to offering them width on the right-hand side, how then he's looking to penetrate with these runs and the crosses that he'd put into the box. So what would happen then is you'd have Hakimi looking to offer the width. You'd have the two strikers there. With Barkok, he was always looking then to occupy the half space and come in. You had Amala. You then had Sher, but with Sher then, what he would be looking then to offer this Morocco side, he was looking then to offer them that positional superiority with regards then to how he'd look to occupy the half space, how then he'd look to drift in between the lines and look to collect that ball and looking then to play make for this Morocco side. At times he was looking to drop deep as well. At times you would see him overloading the same right-sided half space as Barkok on the right-hand side, where then they would look to overload this right-hand side. So a lot of the times then with Morocco, Messina would be the one then to occupy that left channel, but he would occupy a deeper pocket of space on the left-hand side because then they were targeting the right-hand side. So a lot of the times then for this Morocco side, this was the shape and this was the offensive scheme with regards then to how they were looking to attack this Bafana Bafana side. And when you do have a look at it then with regards to Morocco, they created so many chances on the night, and I do think that they could have won this game at least 4 or by 5 goals. And then when you also do have a look at the fact that there was a handball in the box by Tariq Philis, which I think should have been a penalty in favor of Morocco. So this Morocco side on the night, they really were dominant. They created the most chances. And when you do have a look at a key player then for this Morocco side, and a player who stood out for me was definitely Hakimi down the right-hand side, especially then when you look at how then he was looking to offer them the width within vertical zone 5. Whenever then he did manage to go past Leke, he'd be looking then to whip that ball in, and he played a lot of great crosses, especially into the corridor of uncertainty, where then that ball would always go in between the goalkeeper and the defenders as well. And then when you do have a look at the goals that Morocco did score, so the first goal then does come then from an Rabat cross, which then is played to the back post, and Laila K is beaten at the back post. The ball is headed across, and then you do have Nasir being able then to finish that goal off. And then the second goal then does come from a Bafana Bafana mistake, where then you do have Yusuf Mart on the ball within this right wide channel. He does then he just tried to roll his studs over the ball, but he slips. And then when he slips, he plays a very bad pass into the middle of the park. They win it. They look to transition offensively. The ball is played wide, ball played back into the box, and then Al-Kabi does look to finish. So those are the two goals that Morocco scored. They could have scored a lot more goals on the night. But overall, when you do look at it then, the danger and the threat was always going to come from the wide areas with regards to how Morocco were looking to penetrate. Because then when you do have a look at it centrally, Morocco did then look to overload, especially then the right-sided half space. And they were looking to ensure that they overload the central pockets of space and then use the fullbacks offering the width, especially on the right-hand side. So when you do have a look at Morocco then, they did manage then to score those two goals. However, I think then on the night they could have scored more goals. However, RONWEN Williams was just absolutely phenomenal for this Bafana Bafana side. And speaking of Bafana Bafana, let's have a look at how they went about things. So because then Bafana Bafana then sat deep for most of the game, we'll have a look at it then from this perspective. So with Bafana Bafana then, they did then start with a 3-4-2-1 shape. So that is the shape then that they did start with. So in goals then, they did start with RONWEN Williams. As the right-sided centre-back, they started with Krankekana. And then as the centre-back in the middle, they did start with Pete. And then as the left-sided centre-back, they did start with Tariq Philis. And then as the right wing-back, you did have Mudau. As the left wing-back, you did have Leke. They started with Usitole, Musele, and then you had Loch, and then you had Tau, and then you also had Lyle Foster as well. So this is the shape that they started with. So it was then a 3-4-1-2. At times, it would sort of become a front three. But because Bafana Bafana then didn't have the ball for large parts of the game, what you would see then is them going then to a back five. And when they did go to this back five, it would look something like that. And in the first half then, I would say that is where Bafana Bafana really struggled, especially then within the heart of midfield. Whenever Morocco then look then to overload within the heart of midfield, especially considering then that Loch isn't a naturally defensive-minded player, so he would never drop in whenever then Morocco did have that numerical superiority in there, where they'd have a 3 versus 2. So a lot of the times within the heart of midfield, Bafana Bafana were outnumbered. And when you do have a look at it then from an overall perspective, I just think that Bafana Bafana really struggled in this game. And when you do have a look at the type of game that it was, Bafana Bafana were always going to have less ball possession. So when you do play then against a team that will dominate proceedings, what becomes key then is the offensive transitions and how you look to counter-attack teams as well. And also what becomes key is making use of the set pieces that you do have, because from open play in possession of the ball, you're not going to create a lot of chances. So when you do have a look at the goal for Bafana Bafana, it does come very early, where Morocco did have that high line. And you do have Sitole then, who does manage to play that ball in behind for Foster. And Lyle Foster is able then to hold the ball up very well when he does come against Hakimi, and then he manages to finish off very well. So that is how the Bafana Bafana goal came. And with regards to that, Bafana Bafana then really struggled to create clear-cut chances, and it was difficult then for them to then create those chances. And whenever then they did get behind Morocco, I think a lot of the times Percy Tau's decision-making was very poor on the night, and to a certain degree, there were opportunities where he could have been a lot better with regards to his decision-making, and with him then being able to play a better final ball. Overall then on the night, it does end 2-1 in favor of Morocco. And when you do have a look at the players then who stood out for Bafana Bafana, I think RONWEN Williams in goals had a very, very great performance, as he did keep Bafana Bafana in the game for large parts, but towards the end then the writing was on the wall. Morocco were always then going to get that second goal. And then when you do have a look at it then, I think Tibang Pete at the heart of defense also had a very good performance, especially considering then that he did then have to play in between the two wide centre-backs. So he was then looking to offer that extra layer of defense within the heart of midfield. Very impressed with the Sitole, especially when you consider then his strength and you consider then his passing ability. So he was then, whenever Bafana Bafana would have those spells where they would be looking to keep the ball, he was then the one player who was looking to initiate that. He was very comfortable on the ball, and he also then got a very, very good assist for the first goal. And then when you have a look at Mudau at right back, I think he also had a very, very solid performance. With Foster, he did have very good moments within the game where he was able to hold up the ball, and also then when you consider that goal as well. But overall then, it does end 2-1 in favor of Morocco in Rabat. So when you do have a look then at the Afcon 2023 qualifiers, Morocco then do sit on 3 points, top of the table. With Bafana Bafana, then they have no points. Ladies and gentlemen, do let me know, what do you make of this encounter, which was contested in Rabat, where Morocco were the much more dominant side with regards then to ball possession, the opportunities they created, and the football they played overall on the night. So thank you very much for tuning in yet another special episode of Diski Talk with Luyolo. Signing out.